Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Very good.
Canada's premiers trying to get as much face time as they can with influential Americans.
We work with United
Quebec's
States.
Francois Legault spreading the anti-tariff message to leaders in the home building industry.
We are a good ally of the Americans.
Ontario's Doug Ford preaching to the choir, speaking to a largely Canadian audience hosted by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce.
Let's stick together and please get the message to President Trump. This is not a good idea.
The multi-day push comes as new, worrying details emerge about the president's tariff proposal. A White House official speaking on background tells CBC News if 25% tariffs on Canadian goods kick in March 4th as threatened, the new steel and aluminum tariffs would be stacked on top starting March 12th, meaning Canadian steel and aluminum could be hit by a 50% tariff rate.
We need a strong mandate.
Even before that news, Canada's premiers openly acknowledging they're facing an uphill battle.
Let's all face it, there's no secret. President Trump is probably one of the best negotiators in the world. This is his area of expertise.
Sometimes in politics and business, you have to deal with shifting sand, but this is like quicksand under our feet.
We have a lot of big signings, good signings.
Since taking office, Donald Trump's position on tariffs has only hardened.
This is the beginning of making America rich again.
Though he's yet to make good on his threats against Canada, analysts suspect he's not likely to back down anytime soon.
At this point, unfortunately, I think you're going to have to see pain. It's when you start seeing stock markets go down, when you start seeing vehicle plants close. This is a case where, unfortunately, President Trump has to touch the hot stove before he realizes how valuable and integrated this relationship is.
The premiers are trying to cut through the noise of this volatile moment in America with so much change. They'll get a little help from Canada's finance minister, Dominic LeBlanc. He's going to be meeting with Howard Lutnick, according to a senior Canadian government source. He's the incoming commerce secretary who is a very pro-tariff voice around the president.
So, Katie, I know you've been speaking with your sources. What's the mood heading into all these meetings?
There is a really long road ahead for Canada. The first tariff deadline is March 4th. And according to another senior Canadian government source, the thinking in Ottawa is Trump won't likely make his final decision until March 3rd. And it's going to take a slow build of conversations like the one planned with Howard Lutnick to try to find some sort of landing zone where Canada can get out of this tariff-free.
All right, sleeves rolled up. Katie Simpson in Washington, thank you.
Thanks.
So let's bring in Peter Armstrong now for a closer look at how these tariffs could actually play out. Peter, why don't we start with American businesses?
So the key message from Donald Trump has been that he's defending the U.S. steel industry, steel workers in America. And that industry is obviously on board. They saw what happened last time. Steel prices went up, production went up like 15%, and more than 1,000 jobs were added just to industries that make steel in the United States.
What about, okay, those are the ones that make the steel, but then there are all these companies, these American companies that use steel.
To make stuff.
Right.
And that's where the damage was done, right? So when the tariffs kicked in 2018, that drove up the price of steel. Great for the steel makers, lousy for anybody who uses it to make stuff. There's a well-reported example of a factory that uses Canadian steel to make nails in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. Their prices went up, it ate into their bottom line. They make nails for construction. They don't have a lot of wiggle room here. They stockpiled before the tariffs kicked in, but eventually they had to start laying off workers. That story happened across the country, big and small companies. Two economists kind of broke down the numbers in 2020 to get a look at what had really happened and found, sure, it was great for steel makers, but those who use it lost 75,000 jobs. So compare that. 1,000 jobs added, that's great. 75,000 jobs lost, that's not a great net benefit.
So, given all that, if you bring it back to Canada, certainly how this goes down in the United States, I mean, is going to have a huge impact here.
Huge, and we know the playbook there as well, right? As tariffs kick in, those American customers will look for non-Canadian, non-tariffed substitutes. If they find those, that'll draw down demand here. That's bad for business, and businesses will suffer. But there's another thing to think about here in terms of business investment. It was already pretty weak in Canada. Even the threat of tariffs is driving investment away from Canada into the United States. That's bad for business here. It's bad for Canadian businesses. It's bad for Canadian workers.
Great. All right, Peter Armstrong, thank you.
You bet.